Effie, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's very exciting.
Oh, we're so excited. We're honored to have you. Thank you so much for taking time out. I know, especially as you're often on vacation tomorrow to get some
Yeah,
peace and recharge before another lockdown, I believe, out in LA.
exactly. I'm here in Los Angeles. We're about to be locked down. So, yes, I'm going to get out while I can safely and with social distancing, but I'm making it happen.
Okay. Well, I hope you can get back. As long as you have your return path sorted. Well, look, I mean, yeah, that sounds great and much needed. And I mean, I was going to ask actually, as you're about to go into another lockdown, how has this sort of period of 2020 been for you? How has lockdown, how's that experience been for you?
I think, I don't know. I mean, I'll just be honest, I think it's been hard for a lot of people.
Mm,
I'm living in a world of gratitude. I'm so happy for where I am right now and what we're accomplishing and all of that. But whenever I talk to folks, I want, it's real out here. Like, I'm by myself with my 14-year-old dog, and it gets a little stir crazy and you can, I call it like a little low grade depression because you're not used to being able to go out and do things. And I think that a lot of times people see, I'm not trying to be a, but like a lot of people see like all these deals are happening and things are going down that. And you're sitting at home just hope like, that you sort of
yeah,
make it through the day. So that's,
we
so
all
that,
know.
but everything is, game changer. We're really killing it. We're doing a really great job. I have a great team. We raise fund, and with the time that we have and during this time and we're doing really well, but it is a really, we're in a pandemic. And then I don't know if, here in the States, we're a little bit perhaps on the cusp of a race war. No, you know what I mean? Not to be like flippant about it, but it's a challenging and as they say, an unprecedented time, you know, uh,
Yeah.
that's going on politically. That I feel that the storytelling is way to the way to go to try to heal some of these wounds. But we'll get into all of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's exciting. And I think that's as storytellers, so many storytellers watching here, participating. That's great to hear that optimism about how we can play a part and yeah, I'd love to talk more about that. But I'd like to start really, I suppose, just asking you a little bit about your journey to Game Changer
Sure.
and how you started, Effie. What was your inspiration really, which first inspired you to get into film?
What inspired me to get into film was I think that film and television, like it's a place for, at least for me, for connection and also for escape. You know, I remember I grew up in New Jersey. I'm an Army brat, and I remember, and I wish I had like some like Citizen Kane or something really dramatic, but
Mm,
it was Alien. I
yeah,
remember watching the movie Alien and having that really move me. And I think, and I probably shouldn't have been watching that movie. I'm sure my father was just like, here, he wanted to watch the movie. So, but it was the first time I actually got to see a woman saving herself. And I don't think people realize at that time, I'm a little older. You know what I mean? That was like sort of like, oh, wow, she saves herself. It was also a multicultural crew. It was and it's I mean, especially here in the States, the trope of like the black one dies first. But Yaphet Kotto lived almost to the end, and his best friend was sort of like a good old boy, Harry Dean Stanton, who always wore, the baseball cap. And I just remember, and also and seeing us in the future, because that was also a thing that we really didn't see. Like we saw maybe Uhura on like Star Trek, but I just remember being like, oh wait, snap! This is something that this is something that is different. Because I would also watch a lot of television. There's this thing that we were called a latchkey kid. I don't know if people are like, where like both my parents worked and we had a little key and we would let ourselves in after school, and all we would do, like they would say, the television raised us, right? It was our babysitter. And I just remember not seeing myself reflected on screen, right? You know what I mean? Like my family, we weren't like in the ghetto. We weren't like, welfare moms and we didn't have any of that experience. My parents were two professionals making it happen. I have a brother. We were like nicely middle class. At least I felt that we were nicely middle class. Like, what do I know? But that was the thing for me where I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I'm not seeing myself. But when I did get to see something that was really inspirational or like sort of blew open my mind, I was like, that's what I wanted to be a part of. And I remember also sitting there and realizing, I remember looking around the theater and seeing that it was Black, white, old, young, different walks of life, all having a common experience in that theater. And I remember being like, that's a great like connector and like an equalizer. We're all participating and sharing in this one experience. So like that to me, like I knew from a young age that that's what I wanted to do. I had no idea about producing or anything like that. You know what I mean? When I said I wanted to go into film, like I was like, oh, I'm going to be an actress. Yeah. And because that's all that I saw. And my parents were like, oh my God, you're a very Black girl with like a sad little Jerry curl. I don't know if people know what a Jerry curl is, but it's not cute. It was like, the 70s, 80s. And they're like it was like the likelihood of me making it, like in that time was not like this was prior to Oprah. Anyway, I'm going on a little bit, but like I always knew the power of story and I knew that I wanted to be a part of it. I knew I wanted to be a part of it. I knew that that was my calling. I just didn't know how to get in, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense, and I want to get onto how you get in. And firstly, just please, just go on, because I think everyone wants to hear you talk, and it's absolutely fascinating. I think that's just an amazing example. I'm sure it wasn't the only factor, maybe it was, which inspired you to start film, but coming back straight away to the power of storytelling, a science fiction film with a female protagonist, and just think where that's led, Effie, in terms of where you've gone and the impact you've created in the world. That's quite extraordinary, and really, I think really inspiring to us as a community of storytellers thinking about what the impact of.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's I could go anyway. Like that's that's my that's the truth. But I also, what's so interesting, I also feel that like my story isn't so different than anybody else's story where you get moved and something moves you. My thing has always been like, you can't see it, you can't be it if you haven't seen it. And I'm just always grateful that I was like, I see, but like I want to see what it would look like for someone that as a woman of color or someone with a disability, like to be the hero of their own movie. Like how dope is that? Like I remember. And I'm sort of like going off on a bit of an action sci-fi, and you can totally tell. Remember the Terminator? Like how badass was the Terminator? Remember like Sarah Connor was like the mother of the revolution, and she was just a regular lady who was a waitress. Like there's stuff like that I remember watching as a kid and being like, oh wait, you don't have to be like something like proper schools or whatever. Like you could really by your own chutzpah, like, anyway, I took James Cameron a little too much to heart, but that was sort of but that's, those are the sort of movies that, moved me. But then on the flip side of that, there was also some experiences or some movies that I saw that actually hurt my feelings. You know what I mean? Where I was like, it, because there's a lot of times where you would see in movies and television where women and people of color, or anyone who was deemed marginalized, was like a criminal or poverty or, like all those sorry, I'm cursing, like all of those terrible things. And then to be like, well, is that what I'm supposed to be? Am I supposed to grow up to be like, remember I don't know what, we had a lot of shows when I was growing up about that sort of took off on this sort of caretaker sort of role, like at Give Me a Break, where there was like Nell who would take care of the white family. We would have Benson who was the butler who took care of the governor. You had all of these shows where you're like the different strokes. Remember, like, and as a kid, you'd be like, oh wow, like we can't take care of our own, or we can only take care of somebody else's. That's the sort of stuff that when you see as a young person, it sort of sticks with you. And then you have to be like, no. My family was like, that's not what it is, you know. And my mother was she was a professor of Black history, you know, so I knew the story behind the story, and like, oh, this is a trope of Mammy. Oh, this is a trope of this. Like, I see. So these are the stories that get told over and over again to sort of keep people either in their place or like, this is the bubble that you're supposed to live in. And I just knew and would glom on to other people. The more exposed I got to be like, forget that. I'm going to go and create, you know, I'm going to be a part of something new, or reflect really my, like what I grew up with, or what I see other people are the potential and the possibility. Now I'm going to get off my soapbox, but like that was that, but that's my, that was my, you know, that's my feeling.
Yeah. Well, it's so subtle, isn't it? And pervasive, these, you know, those kind of pervasive stereotypes. And it was, I guess, yeah, you were given the opportunity to sort of cut through that and see them for what they were. And but again, it's like, you know, the power of storytelling to do harm as well. So Effie, tell me then. So you knew you wanted to get into film. When did you realize that it was about producing, and how did you?
Well, I got to tell you, I got into Loyola Marymount University on theater scholarships, right? So I knew I was just enough of a good actor to get into school, but I always knew that I wanted to do film. That was just the only thing that I saw, right? And I'm sure we'll get into this later in the conversation, mentorship and sort of exposing people to be like, hey, there's like 80 different positions on a film, right? When you're growing up in New Jersey, or you're maybe in a place that's not a hotspot, of production, you just like, oh, I can only be in front, right? You know what I mean? So I went into theater. I got into acting. I got into school on theater scholarships, and literally on my very first day, I got in and I hightailed it to the film school. And I truly, and I really have to high five this lovely man when I burst into his office, Mr. Howard Lavick, where I told him that I needed to be in the film school. And I literally threatened, I cajoled, I bribed, I did everything. And he was like, I remember him eating like his lunch and him like sort of like looking at me where I'm like, I want to do, and I feel like, you know how I'm talking now, but just imagine me younger with a bit more energy. You know what I mean? And he literally was like eating a sandwich, and he was like, kid, like, you had me at hello, practically. You know what I mean? And so that's how I got in to film school, because back in those days, like 89, 90, like who the hell, like we didn't have phones, those iPhones. We had like, remember like there was like the $10,000 like video camera that was like this big, or you had Super 8 footage. And like, I don't know about you, but my family was like, are you out of your mind? Like you can take a Polaroid picture. And maybe like Super 8, like that was just sort of unheard of. But I knew I didn't have the materials or the access to the resources, but I had the desire, and I was able to communicate that desire to Howard Lavick, and he let me in. So that's how I got into film school. And then I realized, acting wasn't for me because I wasn't very good. Like I could only play like a, sort of a strong, like no vulnerability, nothing like that. And I was like, oh, I wasn't really good. And also I knew that I was never going to be a skinny person. So, and I knew that they always wanted you to be like in a certain amount of shape. And I'm like, I love carbs. So I'm going to make sure that happens. And then I realized that I was good at being bossy, right? I love putting people together. Like that's my jam of creating those, I call them those dysfunctional, functional families. Right? Like if anyone who's ever done a film or put on a play or done a short, it doesn't matter if it's long form or short form. When you're putting together people, the right group of people that they're crazy and you're crazy, all matches up, and you make that magic, that is everything. And that's when I realized that was my forte. I tried directing. I knew from an early age that was not for me. Like I was like, everyone's asking me like a million questions. I hate, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I hate all of this. You know what I mean? Like, I hate it. I just want to work with I want to execute a vision and a plan and be a behind the scenes boss. Right. So that's where I figured out that producing was where I wanted to go. And how I got like in the industry, I'm just going to skip ahead a bit, was I called this thing called the Black Business Bureau. And it was like, is this an organization for Black businesses, right? And I knew when I was coming out of school, I was like, I don't have a rich family. I don't have connections. I'm the only, like, there was so few women and I was the only Black person. And there was one other Black guy that was in the film school. And I was like, shit, I got to figure out how to make it because I don't have the same opportunities that these cats do. So I called up the Black Business Bureau, and it was only, I don't even know if it exists anymore. And I got this woman on the phone and I said, I need an internship. I need to like work on a film. And I swear to God, this had nothing to do with film, right, by the way. And she was on the phone and she goes like, hey girl, she's like, you know what? My cousin is an extras casting on a Robert Townsend movie called The 5 Heartbeats. Let me give her a call and see if you could intern with her. How crazy is that? It was a cold call, reaching out like for help. Like, I don't know who this woman was. I don't know her name. I would never recognize her in a crowd, but she was the one who took the time to connect me to someone else. And that's how I got my first job as an intern on The 5 Heartbeats with Robert Townsend and Laretha Jones. And it became, you know, a movie of note. And that's how I was able to make my way during school. Because I knew that in my senior year of college that I had to start working to get a leg up. Like I couldn't just graduate and hope that shit worked out. Hope that stuff worked out for me. You know, I had to, I knew I had to grind a little earlier than most.
Mm. Yeah, amazing breakthrough. And then what next? When did you sort of, you know, I mentioned before that you worked with Tim Burton. Was that the next step, or was there a few steps in between?
It was I joined a program called Film Independent. And Film Independent, I have to say, saved, like really, I owe everything to Film Independent. You know, I was a part of a program called Project Involve. And they put me with a mentor named Lori Parker. Lori Parker used to be Gus Van Sant's producer. And she was the one that brought me, anyway, I interned and I worked as a PA for her, and she taught me how to be a producer. And I remember going to her and there's a beauty, there's a beauty to being like young and dumb. And I remember going to her when I was part of like Film Independent, and they put me with this producer. And I remember telling her, again, like I did with Howard Lavick, like I'm overselling myself because I was so damn insecure that like I overcompensated. And I remember being like, I'm going to be bigger than Oprah and Jerry Bruckheimer. Like my career is going to be like, if they had a baby, that's going to be me. And I remember saying, and again, for her looking at me, and God bless her, we're still friends today. That has a happy, like, I remember her looking at me and was like, are you out of your mind? Like, what the hell are you talking about? And she loved me up, gave me a job. And that was important. She gave me a job. She wasn't just my mentor. She gave me a job, and she taught me how to be a producer. And she said to me, and I tell this story, and I love it, is that she said, hey, look, I believe you're going to make it, kid, because you talk enough shit, and I believe you're going to make it. I go, but here's the thing. This is the lie that this is the lie that they tell us. When you make it, you're going to get to the top, and you're going to see, you look to the left of you and the right of you, and you're going to see there was more than enough room for others that are like you. You don't have to be the only one. So like I'm helping you, I'm reaching back and helping you up. You have got to reach back and help other people up. That's how this works. That's how we're going to make it. Because when we all are going to make it. And this is a lovely little white woman who's like from the Pacific Northwest. You know what I mean? Like she like took me and taught me something when I was 21 years old, and I've taken it to this day. And that is what I've infused in Gamechanger. That's how I've actually have lived my life as in producing and making sure that like each one teach one. You can't make something about us without us, you know, and making sure that we reach back, because it's true. There's a weird mentality that happens, especially in Hollywood, where it's only one of us can make it. It's like, you know, almost like Thunderdome, 2 men enter, 1 man leave. Yes, I watch a lot of genre movies. Okay, there you go. But it was Tina Turner. Like, how excited was I to see her like in a genre movie? Anyway, but that's where I was like, and that's like, oh, that's a false story that they're telling us, because there's room for us if we don't do the crabs in the barrel, right? If we're not like knocking each other out of the way, we're actually stronger together, which is why, like, really jumping forward, for Game Changer, whereas prior it was only for women, right? And I was like, and I'm a woman, been a woman all my life, right? You know what I mean? I'm like, ride or die for women. But I was like, I'm also an Army brat, right? And my family, and my grandfather was a colonel, like we were high up in the Army. And I remember hearing as a kid, the way that countries or things get taken over is that you separate the people, you separate them, right? And then they're all off fighting their own separate battles. And then that's great, because then the majority can come in and just have a smaller target to knock people out, right? So for me, I was like, what if we all came together? And this is not a novel idea, you know what I mean? Of like, but let's not be just for women. Let's be for people of color, because we're forgetting about our men and our men of color, period. Right? You know what I mean? Like, were they going to go off and like, let's people of color, let's women, LGBTQIA, and people with disabilities. When was the last time, like, there's a movie out now called Run, but like, when was the last time you've seen like an actual person with a disability being the lead of their own movie that's not a woe is me movie? I'm like, it's time for a new kind of hero, man. And whenever I said that, like I had to have a moment of manifestation in 2019 to have this come to fruition. But like, I knew, and sometimes you say something and it really resonates with you when you're like, ooh, that's God on your heart. And I'm not trying to get spiritual, but like, you can go into the universe or whatever. But when you know that, like, ooh, that speaks to the truth and to the soul of you. And that did. And then I have to say, like, I'm like, and we've gotten nothing but an uplift, ever since then, I would say. I mean, hopefully it's going to grow and continue on. Like, we're only at the beginning, but that's the plan. See, I just went on a big long run.
You just keep going.
Just keep going, Effie. Not me just spewing. Sorry.
I'm perfectly happy just to sit here and listen as well. I mean, we're getting amazing comments from the audience. People loving to hear your story about your journey and people helping you along the way. You've got a mission. I think that's powerful, right? I mean, to have a righteous mission, and that clearly just brings so much energy into what you're doing. But let's talk about the setup of Gamechanger, I guess, in terms of tell me about the company and how it's structured. What is it,
sure,
and how does it work?
Sure. So I have to make sure that something is clear. I was not a part of the 2013 Game Changer. That was run under a magnificent producer named Minette Louie, who is a badass independent producer just on her own, right? So Minette Louie was running Game Changer up until, I'm going to say 2019, until I took it over. And what that was, and that was an actual fund that financed movies. Game Changer now, we have development financing. We're a financing, development, and production company. So that's what we are now. We've grown because I've always, so that was the beginning. I'm going to go into the change and the pivot, right? So that was 2013, and they spent down their fund, and they did great. And now the founders of this, of Game Changer, Geraldine Dreyfus, Wendy Ettinger, Dan Kogan, Julie Parker Bonello. And I'm saying these names because these are stalwarts in our independent community now, right? And documentary and impact financing of narrative films. They were looking to see what the next iteration of Game Changer was. Now, I always like to get real, because everyone's like, you look great on paper, but no one ever really gets to see how shitty things could get sometimes too, and how dark it gets when you're trying to produce. Because anyone who's a producer knows it's really hard to have a sustainable career. It's really hard. And it's sometimes this business is, sometimes it's very demoralizing. So I felt I've been producing for a very long time, and consistently having, I was consistently having I'm going to say like triumphs, you know, at the end product, like winning awards and all of this stuff. But the making of, I've always been treated a bit, I call it like a tool, right? A tool of like, for like the financiers to make something. And we're literally, the movies that I've made over $100 million. But truly there were years like, you know, I always, and I tell this in like when I'm talking to folks of like, I almost lost my house, right? Because I did a film, and I like to talk numbers. I did Dear White People, and everyone's like, oh my God, Dear White People, the movie was a smashing success. They even made it into a Netflix series. You've made it, Effie. And I'm like, I didn't make it. I made that movie for $40,000, and that took 2 years of my life. I almost lost my house. I was like literally like looking outside my window to make sure my car wasn't repoed. Like, that shit's real. I took a bet on that movie. I believed in it. But I got to tell you, I haven't seen a dime from that movie. I haven't seen a dime from that movie. Right. And I'm the producer. It was my company. It's all of that. But I know what I'm saying. Other people are going, amen. And they're having the same experience. Like, you are not alone. Right. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. Like that little shame that we get of like, I don't know how, you know, something must be wrong with me. And then to be like, I haven't made a dime from it. And then they went and did the series. You know who's not on that series? Me. My name is nowhere on that series. It was like, the intent was that we were going to make it as a series. And then by hook or by crook, I got cut out. Right. So these were things like this. And I'm using as an example because that was a bit recent, and we can talk about Project Greenlight. You know, like, these are things that were consistently happening where I had to do. Remember when I said, like, I had to do a manifestation? I took 2018 down. I won, and thank you, Cinereach, like high five. Cinereach gave me a grant that allowed me to manifest the vision of Gamechanger. So I remember on a Friday, because like, I don't know if any of you have ever had this moment where you've been like really broke, right? You know, you don't open your bills, right? Like, you maybe let your bills stack up for like a week or two. And on Friday, I was opening bills. And then I got a check for $50,000. And that was the Cinereach unrestricted grant. They didn't tell me, they just put it in there. And that was like the high five from the universe that I needed, because with the savings that I had from another movie and with this, I was like, you are going to stop because you're running. You're like taking the next thing and taking the next thing and taking the next thing instead of actually planning. What do you want to do? Like, you are setting yourself up to consistently be a tool or used for somebody else's gain because you don't have a plan or a strategy for yourself. Right? So I took 2018 down, and that's when I was like, I want to have a film fund. I want to be able to finance the movies and the development of projects that I know is going to be great. I want to do, and I'm borrowing this phrase from Sandbox Films, ethical financing. What? What's ethical financing? Which is like, let's not get screwed over, man. Like, you know, there's like, again, like I go back to Lori Parker, there's room for all of us. But let's all make a living. Let's not be treating people like a tool. And I wanted to come up with a system in a way that we could advance, you know, women, people of color, LGBTQ, people with disability, but put asses in seats in like movies, right? Not the woe is me or like it's medicine, but like, you know what I mean? Like movies, right? You know, films, like things that, and we're happen to be the heroes. It's not about our color or gender or whatever. We happen to be ourselves in these movies. I think it's time. And I'm so grateful that I was able to put together a plan. When I say business plan, you know what I'm saying? We put that together. I paid a shitload of money for it. I don't even know if I used it all, but it gave me the groundwork that I needed. I had friends, and I see Roberta Monroe, like who's a sister who just a viewer notes. Like, she's a sister that like actually helped me through this time. Like, and I was like, what do you want? And this is where I tell people, like, what's your advice? I'd be like, know your what and your why. What do you want to do? And why do you want? period, because this town is hard. This is a business that, you know, people who have huge egos and are narcissists, and like, we're broken and but like, we're not like kindergarten teachers that are, you know what I mean, that are like here, like, who are lovely. I think that those are the best people that I can think of like, you know, people who take teachers who are here to educate our children, who are lovely people. We're film, right? You know what I mean? Like weirdos, right? Like, let's just call it what it is, right? You know, anyway, so I'm so grateful. 2018, I started opening my mouth, and Dan Kogan, who was one of the founders of Gamechanger, I was doing a producer panel for Sundance, and I remember saying, like, this is what I want to do. And like, literally on the way up to Sundance to like teach a lab. And that next year in 2019, he came to me during the Spirit Awards, Film Independent, and said, hey, F, would you ever run somebody else's fund? And I was like, hell yes. Thank you, brother. Yes, yes, I would. And that's how I started making the road into Gamechanger and selling them on the idea of expanding the vision, and seeing. And I'm grateful because I knew that inclusivity wasn't charity. And that's how a lot of people saw us. And they still weirdly see us that way, but it's not charity. We're a great business because we over-index, we show up, we spend the money, we actually share, you know, like, we're like, social media is fierce for us. Like, we are a cornerstone of business. And I got to tell you, high five, the Gamechanger people were like, got you. And they let me be CEO. Now they were like, we're going to hire you as CEO. And I have to do a special shout out to fellow producer Nina Yang Bon Jovi, because truthfully, again, it sounds like everything is great, right? For Gamechanger, they didn't want to hire me at first. They wanted Nina Yang Bon Jovi, and Nina Yang Bon Jovi is, as you know, did Dope, did Fruitville Station, did Sorry to Bother You. Like, she's a fierce woman and fierce producer. But you know what else she is? Is an advocate. And she actually said to them, because it was up between, like, I was always there, and they're like, oh, but like, Nina's shine is way brighter than my shine. And you know what she did as an ally? She said, you know what? You should hire Effie. And the only reason why, and I love her for this, the only reason why Effie isn't where I am today is because she never had anybody backing her. She's always been like a lone wolf making things on her own. You know, I had, you know, and so like, I'm partnered with, you know, Forrest Whitaker. I've had money from back, you know, or financing from, from before, like, do that. And that is truly how I got the job. And everything is great now. Like, I know I'm sharing this for Future of Film, you know, I'm telling the business, but that's the truth. And if it wasn't for her being a true ally, I probably wouldn't. I don't know. If she took the job, I wouldn't be here right now. I can tell you that. But I think that things happen for a reason. I'm now the CEO. And not only am I the CEO, I now own 51% of the business. Right? So I'm not like an employee. I'm an owner, because once you really realize what you, and I'm saying this for the other producers that are out there, once you realize what you're bringing to the table and you're actually able to put monetization or value on it, I was always acting like someone was doing me a favor. And I'm like, I sure am grateful just to be at this table, right? You know what I mean? Like, I get to do, you know, and then when you really realize, you're actually bringing in this deal, this, and this. And like, that actually, you're bringing over like $5 or $6 million, like just in assets already. Like, that makes you a partner. And I have to tell you, what was so brilliant about this is that the founders of Gamechanger were like, yeah, it does. They actually were the ones that, this is how beautiful it was. They actually were the ones that brought it up. I didn't bring it up. Do you know what I mean? I didn't bring it up. They were the ones that were like, this is really interesting. You're bringing all this to the table. You're not an employee. You are actually a partner. So anyway, so that's how the, Gamechanger, 2.0 has come to be. And I am so happy. And as you can tell, I'm on fire. You know what I mean? I'm on fire and I'm energized. I know. Like I can really talk about it all the time because you're right. I don't want to be, I have to remember to be humble, right? You know what I mean? We talk about righteous because like I'm not the type of, you know what I mean? To yeah, Diana Williams. So no, Diana was on yesterday. Like she's also like one of the sisters who like, help me get here because it takes a bit of a village. That's true. But I love Gamechanger. I love where we are right now, and I could talk about it forever. So go ahead. And it was a lot.
Well, look, getting some amazing comments in the chat, and people loving hearing this story, Effie. And I think, just it's so refreshing to hear about giving credit to all the people who have helped you along the way, and so open about that. And so this transition from being a producer from project to project and that sort of hand to mouth existence to being a business owner and with a entity around you, has there been any has that all been a positive thing, or have there been other challenges associated with that, like coming into a more of a leadership position as opposed to just working more on your own?
What's interesting? I think as like all of us as producers, we're natural leaders. Like we lead. The thing is like we lead, like project to project. So I think I've always known, I feel that like this was a part of the fulfillment of my calling, if that makes sense, And I think that and this is getting a little, into the psychology of it all, but I'm now at a place and a point in my career where I'm the vet. Right? I've been around a long time. I'm 40, I'm going to be 49 next week. You know what I mean? But I've been around a long time and I've never had to do anything but produce, right? Like I've had or be in this business. I've been a PA to a production manager to line producer to you know what I mean? I've gone my way through. I think the biggest lesson that I had was in this experience is that I had to let go of the old story of being like, this is embarrassing, but maybe you might have it. I call it like my black girl chip on my shoulder, right? Where I was like, where I'm always was coming at it, like fighting, you know what I mean? Like you're out to get me and I got to fight and I got to do, and you know what I mean? And now, and I heard from some really good people, like, Steve Moscow, who runs Village Roadshow, and Lynn Amato, who was the head of HBO Films, like were friends of mine. And they came to me and they said, hey, look, you're at the table now. You're at the table now. You're actually in a decision making. You are in charge of the money. You are here. Everything that you've been struggling for and wishing for, it's now showed up. Like you made it, right? Not made it, but like you're here. All that shit that got you here, that fire, that burn that got you here, you're here now. Bringing that same like isn't going to serve you anymore because you're here. Right? You have now got to be like, where are you going future? Right? You have to, and this is what I call, it's called like leveling up, right? You are now going to have to learn how to deal with people that can actually help you get to your end game. What's my end game? My end game is being able to have, hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to finance women, people of color, LGBTQ, and people with disability. I want to do their content in front of and behind the screen. I want to make their omniverses. I want to do that. I want them to be able to make a real living. I want to be able to have money to pay people to not be broke and to actually do their best creating. You know what I mean? When they're not like living hand to mouth. That's what I want. And they were kind enough to be like, that's your next leveling up. So let's figure out, you have to figure out what you need to do to get there, because your underdog, which has served me well, my underdog, mentality has served me. But now it's time, to be like, all right, let's kick down these doors so that these other these other people can come in. You know what I mean? When I keep saying kids, but it's not necessarily, because there's a lot of women who are my age who now that I love, there's a question that came about earlier about, women of a certain age where I'm like, whatever happened to them and us, right? You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm down to like, come on. Now that we're in this beautiful time period where everyone is like, maybe you guys do have something to say or an interesting perspective, right? You know what I mean? And I'm like, it might not last forever, but I'm gonna tell you what, we're gonna move forward with it now. So anyway, so all this is to say, like, I had to change the story, like my inner narrative. I had to sort of change that up in this year. And also, and I'm not gonna lie, I tell you, I have a therapist, which is amazing, because this is also, it's a lot of, always what I wanted. But sometimes, when you get what you think that you want, like it does a number to you, right? And then you're like, well, I got it. I have nothing else, and then you have to be like, calm yourself, plot out the next. Like, I do feel that as producers, and especially the people that I work with and my friends who've piped in, we're powerful manifestors. I think that's sort of our jam as women, people of color, LGBTQ, and people with disability. We know how to make shit happen. We know how to, I call it manifest. And I want to be able to sort of manifest like a brighter future where it's sustainable as a producer, and you could be in this business, how to be sustainable, and also figure out how to be how to finance content ethically, where you still make money without breaking someone's back. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes complete sense. We had a question from Mia Johnson here, which I'd like to pass on to you. What are the qualities of the projects you invest in or you want to back? Do they have similar qualities, or how would you characterize a game?
For me, like almost. Yeah, I mean, for us, the saying is, you can't make something about us without us, right? So if you're bringing me a project about a particular country, person, gender, sexual, whatever it may be, I need you to be of that. I need you to know of what you speak. I will, I think sometimes when I get this question, I'm always like, what's better for me to answer is what I'm not going to do, right? I'm not going to do white savior movies. Not doing it. I'm not doing poverty porn. And when I say poverty porn, meaning like the poor Black child in the ghetto, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that Latin. I'm not doing it. Like, there's different vision. It's time for us to have different visions of ourselves. I'm not doing the bury your queer trope. We're like, oh, you're gay, LGBTQ. Like, oh, do you have it? Like, are you going to, like, no one's dying at the end of my movies. I'm not doing it. And I'm not doing and I'll say, like, I do love a good rom-com here and there. Like, that's my dirty little secret. But I will say that for us, of like, I don't want to do, where the girl becomes whole or the guy becomes whole or the girl becomes whole when she gets the guy. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because here's the thing, here's the truth. And it's very upsetting. I'm looking for my future ex-husband, but like, you know what? No one's coming to save you. You know what I mean? There is no white knight, my love. And like, let's stop perpetrating that in film, because I know as a young girl, I'm like, where's my Jake Ryan? Right? You know what I mean? Where's that? Like, and there isn't one. I mean, maybe there is. I'm still looking. Who knows? Call me. I'm single. Just kidding. Not really. Go ahead.
I'm just thinking about going back to Ripley, Effie. There you go. She didn't need anyone to save her, did she?
No, that's what she did, and that's good, and I love that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Amazing. So, okay. So, are you finding there's a lot of demand? People are.
Someone's having a good time in your office. Well. But you know what? That's okay. It's Friday. That's all right.
They're on a bit of a delay, so they're getting the last fitness now, I think. So yeah, you're saying people are waking up, in a sense, to the a more diverse storytelling. Are you getting a lot more demand now for these stories?
Sorry, yeah, I am. And let's just be like, and this is where I don't know how long this is going to last. I've been, and I tell this, like, I've been Black and a woman all my life, and I've been, and I've been doing what I've been doing for a very long time. And I got to tell you, I've gotten more calls now where people are like, "Oh my God, Effie, you are a producer." I'm like, "Yeah, and you're a woman, and you're black." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a twofer," right? You know what I mean? So like all of a sudden I'm like in high demand. And you know what? I'm not mad about that because I know that things swing and things go, and I'm okay with that. I know I'm going to get in where I can. And by me saying, remember I was talking about like now that I'm at the table where I'm like, great, if I have your attention now, my thing is, remember before I'm like, get in, like I'm busting open the door and getting folks in who are also as qualified so that we can all level up together, So anyway, so that's my thing. And also I gotta say, I really don't know how long this is gonna last. I do think that, I wouldn't put, I'm grateful that this is happening, but I also know that we got to get to work. And also there's a thing, and I don't, I'm happy and all of that, but like, why are we being so like, oh my God, it's so great to be like, we should have been here to begin with. Like, why am I excuse my language. Like, why am I praising you? Right. You know what I mean? For like letting me be a part of the system that like I have wanted to be a part of, like for getting a fair shake. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it sort of feels like, we should have already had this. So I'm not going to be grateful for something that we should have already had.
Mm. Yeah,
so how was that for
people? Absolutely. And I mean, and do you think has it been like streaming, which has been such a big part of that demand? Do you think, Netflix being international, and we also had Parasite, didn't we? Right, like winning the Oscar this year.
Oh, so happy it won. So happy it won. So good. So good.
Yeah.
Okay,
so I think we're
excited. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just I feel we're having to come to the end of our conversation. Effie, what are you most excited about? I mean, in terms of the future of film, what are you excited or hopeful about?
I am incredibly excited and hopeful because I think it's a new world order, right? That's actually being created due to, the pandemic, the civil unrest here, like all of that. It's a new world order that's coming about. And I think that that's always a time for when people can come up, right? And sort of assume the position that they were always meant to assume. What I'm also really excited about is globalization. You know what I mean? Like what I love, and I'm really excited about Gamechanger. I'm excited about doing this is because I want to go work in the UK. I want to go work in Europe. I know that Black people, women, and people of color, and LGBTQ, and people with disabilities, we're everywhere, right? So like, let's make movies together, and let's and tell different types of stories where we're, I'm not, when I say the hero, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to do thriller, action, sci-fi, horror. Just we're the leads, and we're the stories, and we have agency of our own stories. Like that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited that, someone like that, people finally hopefully have the courage of their conviction to be like, I got something to say and I think it's worth it. And I think you're going to like it. I love that.
That's a wonderful, wonderful thing to leave things on. Effie, look, thank you so much for joining us for the future film. People have been saying we could listen to you all night, but unfortunately, we do have to wrap.
We gotta go.
You've got to go on vacation, but look, seriously, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for the insights. Thank you for, I think you've really inspired a lot of people this evening. And it's amazing to hear what you're up to. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great night, day, week, whatever. See ya.